Hi there and welcome back to the channel. Today's video I want to talk a little bit about creative color shifts with portraits, in particular using Nick Collection's color effects for creating some dramatic and moody portraits. So portraits are where colors can get a little dangerous. They can also get a little muddy, but it can work really well. Faces amplify every decision that you make. So if you push it with intent, it can feel cinematic and dramatic. Push it lazily and, well, we've all seen some bad edits, I'm sure of it. So what I want to do is take this portrait, which is quite cinematic in itself, and I want to take it even further with some dramatic color shifts. So let's jump in and have a little look. So I've opened the image into Photoshop and I did just a few little basic tweaks. I added in the smoke. I also cleaned up the background and a few little bits and pieces. So not a huge amount, but I just did a basic cleanup. So I then stamp merged all that onto a new layer, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into Nick Color Effects. So you can either go in via your filters, or if you're using version 8 you can go in via the plugins. So here is my image here, and what I might just move me out of the way over here maybe. And what I'm going to do is I want to have a look at some presets, but also some other edits that could really take this image onto a whole new level. It's not about making this, look cinematic by just making it orange or teal or just vaguely radioactive. It's about emotional color grading. So using color to support the mood, the personality, and the story without destroying any of the skin tones. Something like still life or product photography can let you experiment with color, whereas portrait teaches you, I guess, a little bit more restraint. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the filters. I don't want to go into the presets so much, is I want to actually set up my own. So you can see here I've already got some favorites, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and play with a few varying things. So Pro Contrast is a really good one to start with. So you've got neutral. So it doesn't really do a lot. There's an auto enhance that you can use, which has brightened it up a little bit. Then you've got dynamic contrast, which has obviously brightened it up quite a lot, especially if you see where we are here. And then there's strong contrast. So it's up to you how much you want to do. At this point in time, I'm going to go for the dynamic contrast. And I might even drop the opacity down to maybe about 75% or thereabouts. So that's where the initial image started off at, and this is with just a little bit of Pro Contrast added in. Next I want to have a look at brilliance and warmth. Again, you've got neutral, which doesn't really add a huge amount. You've got increased saturation, which I don't want to do. Perceptual saturation, it's starting to get a little orange. Cooler colors is where I probably want to leave this image. Although I did kind of like the warm colors, but no, I'm going to stick with the cool colors. From here, I'm going to go into cross processing. So there's a few different processes that I could apply to this image, but they need to be used sparingly. So I'm going to bring that back to roughly about 50%. Okay, so now I'm going to go into some film effects. You've got faded, modern, nostalgic, and vintage. So you can play around with pretty much any of these. Again, you probably want to be a little careful how much you bring into it. So these are the vintage ones. I'm going to have a look at some of the nostalgic ones. So there's soft purple, warm contrast, warm turquoise, which again can sort of add in quite a bit, but you do need to be a little bit on the careful side, otherwise it just starts to become a little radioactive. But you can play around with lots of different ones and you can stack them up. So I'm going to put this one in with that turquoise. So I'm going to drop that back to about 25%. But that doesn't mean I can't come and play with some of the other ones. So there's also the modern ones. You can play with those. You can come and play with the contrast, the brightness. You can bring the reds down. For instance, it was just becoming a little bit too so it's a sensitivity, you've got the saturation, there's a tone curve. So you really can play with lots of different things in here. And of course, you can still take the opacity down to say about 50%. Okay, so I have stacked 2 film effects. So then what I want to do is I want to darken and lighten the center. So I'm going to have a look at doing something like, you've got maximum depth, you've got brighten on the edges, which I don't really want to do. I probably want to have the maximum depth there. And I'm not sure if I want to play with anything else in there. I can change the shape of it, but I'm quite happy with what it is. Luminosity in the center. Yes, center size, I could fiddle with that. And of course you can drop the opacity on that as well. I guess what it boils down to is if you can see the filter, then it's probably too much. From here, what I want to do is go into some local adjustments. What I have done here are global adjustments. I want to go and do some specific areas. I want to go into the detail extractor. I'm just going to close up some of these filters just so that I can see where I'm up to, because when you start to stack them all, it gets a bit messy. So what I want to do now is I want to go and add in the detail extractor, and I want to just do it to certain areas, not the whole lot. So I want to add just a little bit more to his face. Then I'm going to add another one here. Okay, so I want to add a glamour glow, but I just want to do again with that local adjustment. Okay, so let's have a look where we were before, and here we are now. So I've really sort of added a lot more depth to the image. I could come and play around with film grain. So if I wanted to add fine grain, just a hint, just so that it's, I don't want it too soft, I want it quite hard. And probably bring that back a little bit as well. Then you can come in and add more global adjustments. You can play with it. There's lots of things you can do with here. HSL, infrared film, ink, things like that. So coming into something like Vivisa is really adjusting the whole image globally. Might even add a little bit of bleach bypass because it's getting quite blue. But I don't want it too strong, and I might leave it there. So this is where the image started, and this is where I've brought it in. It's quite moody, it's quite dramatic. That light is quite bright, and it's bringing in the light onto his face and his hand. If you feel that that could be a little bit on the bright side, you can bring that down. Especially if you wanted to, perhaps just on this, you could come in and you could bring the brightness down on that just a little bit. I do love that the light's just hitting his face. His eyes are in a lot of shadow, so there's quite a bit of mystery about our enigmatic character here as he just sits there quietly having a cigar and a glass of scotch per se. So I'm going to leave it here for now, and all I need to do is I could hit preset and you could save all this, or I can hit apply. It will apply all of these filters and it will save it as an image back in Photoshop. So that's it for today's video. Here's the final image. I'd love to know in the comments what your thoughts are. Could I have taken it further? Could I have done more colouring to it or less? Let me know. Anyway, that's it. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and there is a link below if you would like to get a discount code on Nik Color Efex or any of the other DxO products. And don't forget to give it a thumbs up, a like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time on YouTube. Bye.